Hello everyone and welcome back to my Unreal Engine tutorial series in creating your own 3D platformer. In this episode we'll be going over creating a game menu where we will have several tabs that we can use the controller to take control of. So let me show you that now. So I'm pressing my game menu and here we have. So you can see we have several tabs up here, and when we click on them they'll change to different settings. These are temporary. And I'll show you how to set those all up. So if I'm pressing RB and LB, you can now see we're moving across. So let's show you how easily this can be implemented into your own game. Let's get to it. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to be creating a game menu now. So come over to your UI folder, right click, user interface, widget blueprint, select widget blueprint, name it WB game menu, and open it up. So from here, we're going to create a canvas panel. Let's just zoom in this so we can get in there. And we're going to put in a border. We're going to change the anchor to the whole screen and then just zero out everything. Yeah, zero out everything, so that's all covered. And then we want to change the brush color to 0 because we don't want to see anything. And then we're just going to put a background blur on this. Okay, and then from here we're going to add blur strength, so let's say 5. There we go. Okay, so that's going to be our background. So every time we press tab, it's going to blur out the background. You can obviously control the strength by changing this blur strength here. Then what we're going to need is a vertical box. Okay, that's covering the whole screen. And then we're going to need a horizontal box. And this will house all of our buttons that we'll switch through the menu with. So you'll see it goes all the way across. If it doesn't, click this little fill horizontally. And then the last thing we need for now is a content switcher, not a content switcher, switcher. Widget switcher. Okay, and put that in the vertical box as well. And we're just going to change this to widget switcher content, if I can spell it. And we just wanted to fill up the whole space. So click this little fill icon and click compile and save, right? Okay, so what we need to do now is we need to create the buttons for this horizontal box. Now, if we do add the button, the normal button, we're going to run into a problem where our controller doesn't pick up the buttons correctly. So essentially what we need to do is we need to create our own buttons that we can change all the on hovered, the on clicked functionality to suit how we want. And then when we use a gamepad controller, it will show the on hovered correctly. So to do that, come back to your content browser, create a new widget blueprint, and just call this WB game menu underscore button. Okay, open that up, and we're not going to put a canvas panel down because we want this to exist only here, right? So get it in a button and just label it button game menu. Make sure it is variable because we're going to be changing stuff on here like this on hovered, on pressed. All of this will then be changed as we go along. And then we need a text. I put the text on the game button. Here we go. And we're going to change this to text underscore button and make sure it is variable because we're going to be changing this dynamically inside our game menu here. So one thing we want to change is how it looks on screen. So this is not how your button will actually look. So come over to full screen at the top here and go desired on screen. And that's how your button will look when it's in the menu. So let's just change some of the settings here. So go over to your text block and just change the padding at the top and the bottom to be about 10, just so that we have a some padding to the top and bottom. And yeah, I think that's fine. We can also just change the padding left and right if you want to be 10 and 10, so that's what your button would look like essentially, right? You can obviously come in here and change how you want your text to look. I think that's fine. Center justification, make sure center justification is there, so that we don't have the text pulling to the left. But obviously if you want that, that's an option for you. So now go over to your graph and create a new variable called display text. And this is the dynamic part, so we're going to change this to a text and make it instance editable. So then we're going to come to this pre-construct, and basically this is just what happens before the widget is shown to the player. It just fills in all this info, right? So get your text button and go set text, select this one, hook it up here, and then we're just going to set the text to this display text, right? And we want to just click compile and just change this display text to be something to show. So let's just call it button text. Button text. Okay. Click compile and go back to the graph, and you'll see now it says button text. Okay, great. Okay, so something I forgot is we're just gonna right click on our button here and go wrap with size box. And this is just essentially what we'll say is that if we want our buttons to be uniform and not according to the text size, then we want this size box to override the width and height if you want. So we'll go with width and say 150. See, that's too small, so we'll make it bigger, 200, and 200 is probably fine. So you can test this out by setting your variable. So let's just say this is codex, and then leave that and go back here, and you can see that's fine. And just think about like how you want your text to display. So if this is settings menu, nice and long, then you go over to your designer and you'll see it's cutting onto there. So if that's the case, you want to make this even bigger, so 250. And height override, you do the same, so it's 100, and that's what your button would look like, or 50. But I think for now the height, the width is all I want. So let's just label this size box game menu. Okay. Click compile and save, and then go back to your graph, and we want to create an event dispatcher, so that every time we click on a button, this event dispatcher is pushed out to the rest of our game, so that anyone that's looking for our event will then hear it from this, if that makes sense. It's sort of like listening out. So just call this on button selected. Selected. Go to button game menu, click on clicked, and then drag out your on button selected and go to like that, right? So what we're going to do now is we're going to add this game menu button to our thing. So here it is, game menu button. Add it to the horizontal box, and we're just going to make maybe 4 of them. And now we can see if we come to here, display text, we can change what's in here. So let's just say this is our map. Then you can see we've got a map, and then this one will be codex. Now let's say costumes for the future, and then the next one can be codex, and what should the last one be? Let's say for argument's sake, settings, right? Just for example. Then we're gonna need 2 texts. These we can just add to the horizontal box again and duplicate it. So we'll say this is LB for left bumper, and the other one will be RB. And this will just be sort of indicators for how to scroll on controller. We might be able to in the future just make these variable for if it detects a mouse input, it will change this to be mouse, and if it detects gamepad input, then it will do that. It will become LB and RB. So just select both your texts and just center it vertically, so that if we click away, you'll see they're now directly in the middle of a horizontal box. Click on the LB, and we're just going to move it all the way to the other end, right? Like that. So now that we've got them on each side. And next, we're going to add a spacer. And these basically just fill in the space around the object. So if this works, so if we click fill, it fills up the rest of the space and pushes this to that side, right? And then we'll do the same with the other one, and it pushes it directly into the center. So we've got a nice menu right here in the center. Okay, so the next thing we need to do is add it into our game. So go to your blueprint, go to your player, and we'll just find some space somewhere. We have this here. Yeah, pause, special ability, reset camera, photo mode. Okay, so let's go to our input actions and just check that we have something. So actions, we've only got the pause. Okay, so let's create a new input action and go IA game menu. Then go to our IMC platforming and add it in a new mapping. And we're gonna go game menu, and we're just gonna say this is tab, and on controller it's special right, which should be your select button. So you click save. Okay, and come to our player and find some open space. Let's move it. Let's just move all of this. Okay. So just come here and go IA game menu. There we go. And go on started. I'm gonna go create widget. And we're gonna select our widget, which is game menu. Make sure it's not the button, it's game menu. Okay. And then we're gonna drag out from the blue dot to add to viewport. And that will now add it to our viewport when we press this. Okay. So next we need to get our game controller. Get game controller. Get player controller. Sorry, that's it. And we're gonna go set show mouse cursor to true. And then we need to set the input mode to UI only. And the widget to focus will be this one here, so just drag that in. Okay, so what this is basically doing as I reroute these is when we press the button, it's going to set the game to be UI only, right? So that will then focus our game menu in focus. So that's why we're setting it as the in widget to focus, right? And we're setting it to show the mouse cursor. So when we press the tab button, we will create the widget on our screen for us and add it to the viewport and set the game like this, right? So obviously now if we press tab, we'll get this, but if we press tab again, nothing will happen. So, but we'll go over that in a bit. Okay, so what I want to do is I want to give this a bit of padding on the texture. So we're going to go to the right and say 10, and then do the same with the left. Do 10, so it just looks a bit neater, right? Okay, so now we need to work on making the buttons active for controller. So go over to your game menu buttons, just find some free space and just call a custom event and call this active tab space here, and we're going to create another one called inactive tab, right? And then we're going to need a variable. So is active. We're going to make that a bool, right? And then on here, we're going to set this to true, and on inactive, set it to false, like that, right? Okay, so come over to your game menu now. We're going to go back to the graph, and we're going to get the event construct. This one here, we can get rid of these two for now. And we're gonna get a game menu button 1, which is this one here, the one without the 1 at the end here. So we're gonna find that, it's this one. And we're gonna drag out here and go active tab, right? So on construct, so basically what's gonna happen is every time we open up the menu, this button will be the button that's active. So if we had a map here, this would be always displaying the map first every time we press the tab button. I actually want to change this costumes to what I actually need this for, which is quests. So Yeah. So that is what that's gonna, whoops, that's what that's gonna do. And then we need to promote this to a variable and set this as the active tab, right? So on construct, this will become the active tab variable. It's cute to get that. And then what we need to do is on button selected. So what we need to do then is get our active tab here, drag out and set inactive tab. So make sure that this tab, when you click on it, makes this one inactive, right? And then we need to get here, get active tab. Okay, and then we need to set the active tab here at the end to be this one here. Okay. So essentially the logic is that when we press this button, right, we're going to clear whatever the current active tab is. So setting that as the inactive tab, and then making this button, our map button, the new active tab, and setting that, right? So then we need to do it for the others. So on button selected, and then just do copy all of these. And all we're going to do is change the references. So now that we need game button 1 to be the reference, just click and drag onto here, and you'll see it will change to the 1. We'll do it again for on button 2. Paste. If when you're pressing, when you're dragging this in, and it's going like that, or cannot write to the read only, you just want to drag to like a corner. You'll see that little tick there, and then that will change the reference, right? And then we need to do it for our last button. That, yeah. Okay. So now that that's all in place, what we're going to do is we're going to now implement the functionality for the LBRB buttons. So come to your functions, go to override and say key on, key down, right? And we're just going to drag out here, and we're going to say get key, this top one, and say equal. Okay, great. We're going to need 2 of these. Okay, and now if you've got your controller on hand, you can press the buttons, but if not, I'll show you with this. So I'm just going to click on the little keyboard here and then press. And then for this, we go gamepad, right shoulder. Yep, there we go. Okay, so then we're going to need branches. Over here. And if this is false, we're going to get another branch. And that's going to be this one. Okay. So basically what's happening is when we press the left shoulder button or the right shoulder button, we are then going to do some code, right? And now we need to create that code. So let's just create a new function called previous tab, and another one called next tab, right? We'll code those now, but for now let's just bring these in. So if it's the left bumper, we're going to the previous tab, and if it's the right bumper, we're going to the... Okay, so then we're going to drag out here and type handled, and this just is basically telling the system that we're done with this function, right? So just connect this up here and then do that again. And then off this false, we're going to need another return node, but we're going to change this to unhandled, saying we've unsuccessfully completed this function. So that's basically just saying that we haven't pressed anything. So that's what this is. So click compile and save. Okay, so next let's code the actual tabs. So let's go. I'm gonna have to do this the long way. Okay, so let's start with the variables. We're gonna need the active tab index. This is basically just going to be the index of whatever's in our tab menu, right? So each button is then indexed. starting from 0 to however many. So if, for instance, we have 4 buttons, if we had 5, that would be the max of the index. So it would be 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. As it is now, it's at 0, 1, 2, 3, right? So that's the index count. So what we're going to need to do is every time we click next tab, we're going to have to increase the index count by 1. And then we need to get our did I not make this variable? I did not make this variable. Okay, so what you need to do is you need to come to your horizontal box and just make sure that it is a variable, and we'll just say this is horizontal box game buttons. Okay. So then we come to here, click and get drag out and go get all children, and you'll get this array. And we're gonna go is valid. You get is valid index, right? And then we just need to drag out from here, select int, and this value will go into our A. So basically what's happening is every time we press the next tab, which would be our RB key, we would increase it by 1 up until it reaches the end, which in our case is 3, so 0, 1, 2, 3, and then it resets it to 0. So if we press RB again, it goes back to map. Okay, from here we're gonna have to set our index, so now we can actually connect this up. So this will be our new variable, so that's what that is setting as. And then we get from our active tab here and make it inactive, right? Because we want to make the current button we're on inactive. So then we need to tell the system which is our next active tab. So get all of this, Control C, Control V, yeah. Because remember, this houses all of the buttons in it, so we're just gonna get a copy, and we're gonna get the active index and connect it up like that, and then we're gonna have to cast to WB game menu button, right? So why we cast into this is we need the functionality that's inside our game menu button, so we're gonna need this, right? And that's why we have to cast, but we don't need to connect up the execution pins. We can just right click and convert to pure cast, right? And that will work fine. So then what we need to do is we need to call active tab, right? And that we can now connect up into here. And then we need to set the active tab as this one. Oops, this one here. Like that. Yep. Okay, so now we need to do the same for previous tabs. So just copy basically everything and come to here, but we're gonna decrease. So instead of plus here, we're gonna minus, subtract 1. Yeah, so connect this up here, but we need to get the last index, right? So get the last index from our array of children. And this is just to get the very last item on the menu. So remember, it's 0, 1, 2, 3. So it's just going to find the last one, which is 3, and set that as the max value. And then we can connect this up to A. Right? If you do get this error when you're compiling, just right click and click convert to pure cast, and then the error should go away. Okay, so let's quickly test this out. So go into your game. I'm gonna press I've got the controller in my hand, I'm pressing the game menu button. So we've got a double input here. So let's fix that quickly, right? So go to your player blueprint, and I set it as the map, this one, so we can just get rid of that. And also we're gonna have to get rid of it inside our IMC platforming, so look for map. Up here we can just get rid of it. Click save. Let's test it again. Yeah. And it did not create that. So let's figure out why. Okay, So what I did wrong was on my input mapping, I set the game special to right when it needed to be left. So just you can come over here, click, press the correct button, and now if we go into the menu, into the game, press the menu, here we go. So as you can see right now, we don't have any of the buttons selected, or we can't see them as we haven't changed any of the button stylings. So it should be working. So what we need to do next is actually show the what happens when we change the menu type. So let's do that now. Okay, so to finish off, what we need to do is we need to come to our content browser, go back to your UI. We're just going to create some fake screens here, right? So just so that we can visualize what we want. So let's just create a new folder just to hide them temporarily. So we'll just call this folder temp. And we'll create a new widget blueprint and call it WB game menu underscore map. Okay, we'll come in here and we'll add a border and text. Okay, this is just temporary until we've actually added what we want. So the border, we're just going to change the color. We'll say this one is a dark gray and make this directly in the center. Increase the text size to say 80. It's fine, and we'll just say this is map. Okay, click compile and save, and we're going to duplicate this 4 times for the 4 buttons, right? So Control D, Control D, Control D. Okay, and I'll just relabel these. So this will be quests. This will be what was game menu, quest codex settings. Okay. Quests codex settings. Okay, so let's just open them up and make some changes. Let's call this codex, and we'll change the color of the border. Let's make it like that. Compile and save. Close that out. Close this one out. Go back to our content, quests. No, sorry, wrong one. Border, make it blue. 3 days, compile and save. And the last one, which will be our settings. Okay. Settings. And then it's green or something. Compile and save. So now we go back to our game menu. Okay. So what we need to do is we need to make sure that when we add these new widgets in, they're in the same order as our buttons, right? And we're going to be adding them to the content switcher. So let's just type game menu here and we'll get everything. So first is going to be the map. So we'll put the map in first. Then we need quests, put the quests in second. Then we need codex, third, and settings fourth, right? Okay, happy days. Okay, so now we're going to go to our graph. Now we're going to come over to our graph here and just to the end of our button menu, and we're just going to get our content switcher, and we're going to go set active widget index, and each one will need to be set accordingly. So remember how it goes 0, 1, 2, 3. So each time we just need to put that in. So as it stands here, 0, we go here, it's 1, and then here's 2, and here's 3. And then we need to go to our previous tabs and next tabs, come to the end, paste that in, and we can just get the active tab index and connect it there, and then we can do the same on the previous tab over here. Okay, so that should technically be it. So let's go ahead and test. So I'm in the game, press tab, okay, on the map, quests, codex, settings. So this is all working perfectly how we want. even though our buttons aren't showing exactly. So let's test with the controller. Press in RB, we're on settings, we'll go to quests. That's wrong. Settings. Ah. Okay, and there's a bit of a bug there. So let's just... Oh, it's because it's counting the RB and LB. So that's why we're having to press twice, I think, or 3 times. So wait, let's just go settings. So we're going to count RB spacer spacer RB map. Okay, so that's why it's counting the other things. Okay, so let's fix that quickly, right? So come here. So see, this is why we're getting these errors. Okay, so come over to your browser, go to your game menu. Okay, I'm gonna come to the design, and we're just gonna get these 4 buttons, right? Right click, go wrap with horizontal box, and we're just gonna name those box horizontal box buttons. And is variable, happy days, compile and save, right? So nothing else has changed there, but we need to now change in the code. Yeah, so it's this one here we need to change, which is this one, which is horizontal box buttons. Okay, so just replace those like that and like that, and then do the same on the previous tab. So go here and go here. That all should be okay now. So compile and save. Let's double check. No. So around map, press an RB. Huh. Okay, there we go. It's not working. Okay, so map, press an RB once to quest, RB again to codex, RB again to settings, RB again, back to map. LB to settings, codex, quests. Okay. So this is how we can easily create a menu for our game. Obviously, you can change the styling to how you want. That's a bit beyond the scope of this, but it technically now works. So, okay, so the final thing I want to do is I want to make the menu toggleable, right? So we're going to come to our game menu and just drag over some space here, and we're going to get a branch. And now we need to check it against something. So let's create a new variable called is game menu open. Yeah. And we're going to go not full. Yeah. So if it's not open, then we'll go ahead and create the widget, right? But then we need to set here to be true, like so. Okay. And if it's false, then we need to come over here. And we're going to go get the reference. Okay. So I might have missed a step, but all I did was I dragged out of here and went to promote to variable and just called it game menu widget reference. And set that, and then just added it to the viewport like we've done before. So now we just have this reference, right? And we want to now bring in the reference and go remove from parent. Then we can get our player controller here and go set show mouse cursor to false and set input mode to game only. Connect it up like that. Oh wait, I'm connecting to the wrong thing. Okay, yeah, that's fine. Okay, yeah. Okay, so that should now be it. So let's just go over the logic. So we check if the game menu is open and check if it's not open. So if it's not open, we need to then open it, set this variable to say it's open, create it, add it to the viewport and everything. Then, but if this is false, if it is open, then we got to set the variable to off and remove it from the parent. So click compile and save, and let's test if that works. So here we are in game, press tab, press tab. Okay, so simple mistake. You want to change this input mode to game and UI. Set input mode to game and UI, simply because why this is happening is when we set it to input mode only, it's not taking in our controller setup, our AMC setup. So we just want to set that like that, and then that should be fine. Okay, so now that that's like that, let's go ahead and test it. So here we are, press tab, good. GameCAD, press the game menu button and press it again, and happy days. And then we can obviously, interesting. Okay, now that we've got that working, we are set to go into our next tutorial, which will be the quests tutorial. There is a small bug with the menu, so if I'm holding my controller like I am now and I press RBLB, it's not going to the menu, but if I select on something and then press, it's going across. But that I will fix in the upcoming bug fixing video, so look out for it there. But for now, this is technically working, and now we can move on to our quest system. And it's going to be quite a lengthy set of tutorials, so stick around, hopefully they'll make sense. And I hope you learned something. Until then, cheers for now.